People start their fashion careers in different ways. Others start with internships. Others start their businesses immediately after fashion school. Others actually do it later in life after changing careers. There are very many ways, and I'd like to share my story on my journey this whole month. So welcome to the channel if you're new, and let's start. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I know I was missing in action last week. I decided to take a short break, but now I'm back a bit more energized. I was really feeling overwhelmed. Welcome new subscribers. I have noticed we've increased in number. I hope you like the content that you've managed to see so far. And this month actually I am doing a new series, and I call it the What series. Basically I'll be answering a lot of questions about my journey in fashion as a student, for my professional life, and basically answering those questions that I get a lot, and a lot of questions that pop up in different interviews that I've done as well. So today we are focusing on my student life, what it was like to be in fashion school, and I thought it would be a good build-up to what last month's series was about, which was about business and everything. I know watching all that content makes it look like I have everything figured out. I don't have everything figured out. There are very many things I share that I also aspire to do, but I figured I'd share it with you. We are all at different stages in our fashion businesses, and the whole point is not to compare, but to collaborate and share. So if you have some things figured out, awesome. If you have some things you still need to learn, awesome. And the funny thing about this fashion journey is that sometimes you have everything figured out, something happens to your business and you have to start all over again. And the truth is, there's nothing wrong with starting again, because the truth is you actually have experience, and you can know where you went wrong, and you make the changes that you need to if you decide to start again. So the whole point of this month is also to just show you do not give up. And I know sometimes being a creative means you have a million and one ideas that you want to execute, and may not look very possible, or it may look even impractical. You might even look confused to people who support you. But be encouraged, many of us are like that, so that's the whole point of this video. So welcome, and let's start. So at the beginning of the year, I had shared a few of my old sketches that I used to do when I was a child, basically just to show also a bit of where I started. So the thing about the first fashion school I went to, I was actually asked for my portfolio. The truth is, I don't know if it was just a formality, and I think maybe it's something the school was trying to do in terms of making sure that they get students who actually have a natural talent towards fashion. But I have a feeling that they just used to accept anybody, because in the end, after joining that school, I realized it was more focused on money than it was really on ensuring we had a good education, mostly because the turnover for teachers was very high, and for a school that had been established for a very long time like that one, the quality wasn't up to standard. And I don't know if it's really something that maybe it was just for me, my own personal experience, because the truth is all businesses, even fashion schools, go through highs and lows, but that was my experience. So because of that, I had to change schools, and at the time in Kenya, the options for fashion schools were not very many. I did not get the grades to go to university, and also I did not want to try to get to university to study fashion, because I had, at that time, the curriculum for university, if you did design, you had to learn all forms of design, architecture, interior design, and I was like, no, I know I want to do fashion, and I wanted to just stick to fashion. So I did find a school almost a year later actually, because I stopped going to the other school mid-year and I couldn't start immediately in the new school. So I think in January I did an internship for a couple of months after I left that school. I did an internship at a non-governmental organization where they were working with street kids, and I was teaching the street kids crafts and making Christmas cards for their sponsors and things like that. That's what I was doing then. I left and I went and found another school the next year. So that's just randomly how I began. After that, I managed to get another school. This school specifically was not, its fashion course was still very new. So they were actually more known for beauty and hairdressing, and they had just started their fashion. And the reason I joined them was because they agreed to let me continue from where I had stopped, while the other schools that I had asked insisted that I have to start from scratch. Truth be told, even after joining that school, as much as I was told all these things, I think I started from scratch, because yeah, I did everything. The difference maybe is I was a bit ahead of the other students because of my experience in the other school. I'm avoiding saying the names of the school because I don't want to recommend a school or disregard a school based on my experience. I would rather later on do a review of schools you could consider joining, but I don't want someone to feel like they can't go to those schools because of my experience, so I do not want to mention the names of the school. If you know me personally and you know the schools I went to, well and good, but I don't want to do that. So the goodness of the second school, it was in the middle of the Central Business District, which we call CBD in Kenya. So I had to commute, but it helped me learn town. We call it town or CBD. It helped me learn, and my fellow students really helped me know where to buy things. The first school, I felt like they insisted on us buying very expensive things, but in this second school we were just told, use whatever material you can afford and that's available. Now there's something about fashion schools that you might not know, at least here in Kenya. There is a student kit that you buy. The student kit varies from the school you go to. So for the second school, it consisted of the t-shirt, uniform that they give you, plus a few sewing things. Let me tell you, the thing about fashion and what parents usually think is once you buy the student kit, you don't have to buy anything else. It's not true. Fashion is a very expensive course. Even if the tuition is not as expensive, you will always buy things for your projects. So what I learned very quickly is that I always need money to buy things for my projects, and you want to buy it in advance because you don't want to fall behind in your projects. If you fall behind in your projects, you don't meet your targets by the end of the term, it means you fall behind and you stay longer in school, and that is one of the things I was avoiding. So you do spend a lot of money on materials, and I'm sorry, I know tailors learn by sewing paper. In fashion school you sew with fabric, you don't sew paper. So depending on the school you go to, there are some schools that offer to buy fabric and they have the fabrics in rolls in bulk, so you pay maybe a bit more money. Personally, I would prefer the idea of you learning to buy fabric, because you can buy different types of fabric, experiment more, know where to source fabrics from, and other fashion accessories like buttons, zips, threads, all those things. You learn more if you are in a school where you are allowed to explore those options. So for me, I learned that mostly my classmates were very helpful, and it helped that it was in CBD, and most of my shopping was done at lunchtime because we had 1 hour lunch break, and it just reached a point where it made more sense to shop at lunchtime so that I don't have to inconvenience myself later, because by the time school is over, most shops are closed. So lunchtime became the time that I did a lot of my shopping. So I would definitely recommend a school that allows you to explore your options. Of course, we had students who had more money who could buy more expensive fabrics, but when you're a student, just buy what you can afford, because sometimes your work is also not really up to par. So you'd spend a lot of money on expensive fabrics, but it doesn't look good. When you look at your student work later on, you'll be like, why did I spend all this money on fabric? Yeah, so those were some of the things I would say helped. I also liked the curriculum. Was very, very practical. We learned so many things. We learned how to make curtains, we learned how to make bed covers and beddings, we learned how to make mats, we learned a lot of things. And I know some of my classmates have ended up in some of the making other things like that, the curtains and everything else. For me, it's always been clothes, and I think it will remain being clothes. I have done curtains and bed covers and all that, but for me, it didn't interest me enough. It's a bit monotonous, and there's really very little you can do in terms of creativity. So that's why I stuck to clothes. So in a nutshell, I think that's it. I don't know if there's anything I've left out. So that was student life. So to continue, after school, one of the things we were supposed to do was to look for internships. Basically, the internship process, of course, you started way before you finished, because the teachers would give letters sometimes to for us to use to ask designers to give us opportunities. So unfortunately for me, I did not get any internship opportunities at all. I tried, I applied everywhere that I could think of, because the whole point, I guess, also was to try and find a designer of whom I liked their work, and I thought maybe it's how I'd want to work, but I did not get those opportunities. The school did try to help get internship opportunities. There are some who are offering opportunities but wanted you to pay, and I knew there was no way I was getting that kind of support, because at that time I think my parents were like, yay, we are done paying school fees, because I was about to finish, so there was no way. I didn't really feel like I was going to get the support for paying for an internship. And I was also at the same time trying to get my machine. So what I did was, when I was in school, our school was very strict with, you have to sew everything at school. So I was starting to campaign to get my own machine. So at least I got mine just before I finished school, so that I could be able to practice my sewing and everything. So because I did not get an internship, the goodness is my mother was someone who already sewed. She had her own sewing machine, which I wasn't allowed to use, which is now what I use all the time, but I wasn't allowed to use it. But I also did not know how to control a machine much, because it was electric, and she brought for me a treadle machine, and I learned how to sew with a treadle machine. So that's what I used. And I think my mom also just didn't want the idea of using up electricity. At that time, I don't think we really knew how much electricity a machine takes. It doesn't take much anyway. So I started just making things. Of course, my mom made me very busy making for her cushion covers and everything like that, but I was also just trying to practice clothes. She had a lot of fabric which I borrowed and made things from, and just tried to practice my sewing. I really did hate sewing, I won't lie. I struggled with it, especially very structural clothes, in terms of suits, you know, the ones that have a lot of rules, like suits and all that. It's very funny right now. I love to make corsets, and corsets have a lot of rules and have a lot of structure, but I prefer corsets to making suits and things like that. So I struggled with those. Even trousers, struggled with them. So what I did is I decided I will maximize on my strengths, the things that I generally do very well are dresses, tops. Yeah, because they're just so varied in design. You can do so many things. You can break so many rules if there are rules to break. You can experiment a lot. So till this day, that's what I love to make. And my advice would be, if you are going to do design, you might want to make everything, which is not necessarily very wise, but definitely stick to what you're very good at doing and just work on that. You don't have to do everything. I really avoid doing things like trousers and all that, and it's because if I did trousers, I'd have to learn so much about trousers that it can even dilute my knowledge for other things, because it's a whole different type of structure. And I do mostly women's wear because I understand a woman's body, whether you are big, small, tall, short. I understand it very well, and it's because I have practiced it for very many years, and it's because I make for myself my own clothes, and I have had fluctuating weight most of my life, so I know how to make clothes when I'm smaller, I know how to make clothes when I'm bigger, so that has really helped me with my clients as well. So that's a bit about my after student life. Yeah, it was a very hard period, but I had to learn how to manage time. It helped me learn how to manage time, helped me learn how many meters. One of the hardest things to learn is how many meters do I need to make a certain outfit. I learned that because of making clothes for myself. And the truth is, sometimes you don't learn those kind of things in internships, you learn them through experience. And I have noted lately, when I meet a lot of designers, they don't experiment, they don't. So sometimes it's very hard to grow if you don't experiment. Experimentation and giving yourself time to explore different things really helps you grow as a creative and as a designer. So that is my after student life, like immediately after school. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that's it. I definitely recommend that you learn 2 specific skills: how to manage your work and how to manage your time. Those are very important, whether you are employed or you are running your own business. Those are the 2 things that really affect a lot of fashion businesses. If you've been given an outfit, you should know how much fabric it takes, how long it will take, the techniques you'll use to make that thing. That you have to have it down, and the time it takes also, you have to have it down. If you can be able to master those 2, then you could probably do very well, at least in the design department. There's so many other things you need to learn, and one of the things I highly recommend is business skills. Otherwise, if you know, like, I recommend this because I changed a bit of my business model because of this. I started charging more for clothes that I take longer to do, and then be able to not justify, but it helps me be able to explain to the client that, you know, the clients who find things on the internet and say it's a very simple dress, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it takes a lot of research even to know how to make it. You might be able to figure it out, but you want to be very sure. So you might research, you might ask your friends, you might actually even hire a pattern cutter to do it for you, to cut for you and things like that. So it's just very important to know how you're going to do the thing, the time management, and have your business skills set. Being paid per, I don't know if it's per hour, I guess you could do per hour, then you take it to per minute. I know for things like corsets, I really do check how long I take to make that corset, and that's why my things like my corsets are different prices. For my ready-to-wear clothes, they are more reasonably priced, affordable. So because I repeat the patterns, it's something I keep doing and doing. Maybe I change the fabric and the print and stuff like that, but it's the same pattern. So there's a way you can take the time you used to make the pattern and spread it out across all the clothes. But when you're doing corsets, it's so particular, so specific. There are multiple fittings. It has to fit a particular client in a certain way. Unless I'm making multiple corsets for that client and the pattern will be the same, it ends up being very expensive. So there are some things you learn, and the truth is you will not always learn them at school. You will learn them by practicing and experimenting. So those are the things I would point out. If you have to do a business class, I did do a business class way later in life after I messed up ended up not making any money at all, and I just learned business. I went for business school later, and I think I mentioned it in my series when I mentioned synapse. And doesn't mean that I have things figured out yet. I don't, because there are so many things I want to try. I want to try selling in different markets. I want to try selling online and things like that. And I know I've done several videos where I've shown you how I do those things. So it's a learning process, and sometimes I might know what I'm doing, but the person I've partnered with, maybe the retail partner, might not be the right fit, and I'm back to square one. That has happened to me a lot. I'm going to share more about that later on in the month, about being employed versus being self-employed. Also, anything else you'd want me to touch on and to speak about, I'm willing to do it. I am willing to share. For the things I don't know completely a lot about, I am willing to just share the research and I guess tell you more about it. So before I forget, one of the things that prevented me from getting an internship as well was that I did not know how to do freehand cutting. So for those of you who do not know what freehand cutting is, it's a method that most tailors use where they cut the design directly on fabric. So most fashion schools will teach you pattern drafting. We do not really have a school in Kenya that teaches draping. But freehand cutting is basically a simpler version of pattern drafting where the tailors draw directly on the fabric and cut. It's a bit of a risky way of cutting, but there's some tailors that are very good at it. So for me, thank God the school I was in decided to teach us some basics, because a lot of us were not getting internships because of that. I still didn't get an internship because of that, because I did not want to be reduced to being a tailor. There's just a thing about when you studied fashion, you just want to be a designer. I think I really used to look down on sewing, and now I think I appreciate it a bit more that I actually have that skill. So I do have freehand cutting. In the next couple of months, I'm going to be releasing a digital version of a freehand cutting book. I'll make it very affordable. It'll be like 100 shillings or $1 for anyone who wants it. So if you want to do sewing as a hobby, or you just want to have the basic blocks of freehand cutting, I'll be making a book. It's going to take a while for me to make, so be patient with me, but I will definitely announce when it's out. So yeah, that's it from me. This video is short as I promised, and I guess next week I'll see you. I'll be answering some questions that people in the industry get asked a lot. As designers, some questions are being asked a lot, and I figured I will do a whole Q&A session about it. So I'm sure some of the content will be repetitive, but bear with me and enjoy. Thank you so much for watching and seeing to the end. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and leave any comments below. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for watching to the end.